All right, hey class. Sorry, it is late and you're going to get some glare on my glasses. So, lecture 17, we are talking about the United States entry into World War I. And at this point, I hope you were able to read through the American Yop textbook. I included two sections of it to provide you with some historical context of what was happening in Europe prior to the United States involvement in it. A couple things that I'll point out. First, the United States, President Wilson declares pretty early on, like 1915, that the United States will be neutral in this war. That's a pretty important declaration, especially considering the United States' prior relationship with England and with France. Both countries had good relationships with the United States, and a better relationship than neighboring Germany. And as you recall from your understanding of World War I, there were essentially two great forces here. There were the Allied forces and the Central Powers. The Allies included France and Russia and Great Britain, and then a few years later on it would include Italy. So France and Great Britain especially were close allies with the United States. The Central Powers were Germany, the Austria-Hungary, and then the Ottoman Empire. And we should include Bulgaria as well. So the United States has close ties with the Allied forces. But another piece that's important to remember is that prior to the start of the United States involvement in World War I, is that the United States had taken the mantle as the world's largest economy. This had been a slow and steady build. The United States, in its earliest days, was seen as a small country. Shortly after the American Revolution, it certainly didn't have any products. It didn't do much importing or exporting of goods. They were largely seen as England's little stepbrother or stepsister. But because of the Industrial Revolution, because of the successes in the second half of the 19th century, the United States continues to grow. We cannot forget the importance of slavery in helping the South establish a strong economy that we've previously talked about. This does not mean that we are supporting slavery by any means. But because of the long-standing existence of slavery in the South, it certainly helped the Southern economy boom. And then coming into the 19th and then into the 20th century, we will continue to see that American innovation continue to develop good, strong goods, the automobile industry, aircraft, so that by the start as we're getting closer to the Roaring '20s, the United States has the world's largest economy. It is producing more than its allies, and it's importantly being relied on for loans. And so the United States, to some degree, is helping to fund the investment, the war machine efforts in Europe. So it was a great position to be in. Neutral, none of the battles are happening here. We're not losing any soldiers. Everything's happening overseas. So that's what makes this question that we're considering today, why the United States enters World War I, so important, especially given that the President Wilson had previously declared the United States neutrality and had strong support for that position. Now, a little bit more about Wilson. Woodrow Wilson becomes the United States president in 1912, but he won the presidency with less than 50% of the popular vote. And that is because the Republican Party would split into a Republican Party that supported Taft, and then a Progressive Party which supported Roosevelt. And so while Roosevelt will win, the splitting of the parties meant that he would win with less than 50% of the popular vote. Abraham Lincoln did the same thing. So what that means is that Wilson lacked a national mandate. He could not look, at the numbers of the voting bloc and say the majority of the people in this country supported me. To the contrary, a minority, a majority of the limited votes that went to him, but it was not more than 50% of the popular vote. So he did not enjoy great support at the onset, but he would win more support, especially from his from the Progressive Party, because he opposed things like the political machines. Many progressives also opposed the United States' intervention in the war and feared that it would detract from domestic political and social reform. Right? Some of the things that we looked at last week with the social gospel, trying to fix the ails caused by modernity. Now, Wilson will invite controversy because his administration implemented new measures of racial segregation at the federal level. Wilson has definitely been on the hot seat in the past decade. There has been calls to rename, I think it's Princeton's School of Public Affairs, that's named for Woodrow Wilson, because, like I just said, he will implement forms of racism into the federal government. And he definitely has a racist tinge to his legacy. For instance, the great racist video, The Birth of a Nation, Wilson will proudly show that film in the White House when it first comes out. So his support of segregation policies and his views on race faced a lot of public criticism and then a lot of protest from civil rights activists, such as W.E.B. Du Bois, that we've previously talked about, Monroe Trotter, the journalist Oswald Garrison Villard, all of whom had previously supported Wilson during the election. So let me end this introduction to Wilson. I provide this for you because one of our documents today is a speech given by Wilson. So I want you to know a little bit about him before jumping in. So we'll end this, and then our next thing we're going to be looking at are two primary sources.